Ready? Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. As mentioned, Councilman Hall will be a little late. We will bring the council workshop for Tuesday, March 19th to order. Presentation from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, reference Highway 371 corridor.
Mayor Ryan, if I could just to introduce, kind of set up the workshop today. Good evening, everybody. We have MnDOT and Bolton and Mank here to provide an update on the study that they've been working on through up 371 through Nisswa. And what we're going to do tonight is we have a presentation that you will hear for about 15-20 minutes that we are streaming on YouTube per our normal process. And then following the conclusion of that, the council will be invited to come down and look at the maps and see some of the design ideas. And so we will stop the recording at that point because they won't be able to hear from the public, but at least we'll have the presentation part of the recording done. And then we'll have more of a workshop kind of conversational part to the meeting, if that works.
Very good.
All right. With that, Tom Cruikshank is here, I think, just to kick us off.
Yeah, I can kick it off. Thank you, Jenny. Mayor and council members, again, thank you very much for giving us the time to come and visit with you this evening. This is something that we started doing a couple of years ago when we do our corridor studies, is we try to carve out some time with the local government units that are involved in these studies to sit down and kind of talk with you about, give you an update on the study, but also just have a time just to have some open rapport. So we call them workshops because we don't want it to be a formal presentation and discussion. We want really to be informal. So the most formal part of this is just Bob, our consultant representative, going through kind of we have to give you some background on this, but I really want to encourage you to ask a lot of questions and have a lot of conversation with us. We've got an hour, so time will go fast. Quickly. Just want to do quick introductions. My name is Tom Cruikshank. I am the project manager for MnDOT District 3. I work out of the St. Cloud office. I'm overseeing the corridor study. I just want to recognize two of our staff, MnDOT staff from the district office that are with us. Mike Kennedy, our district engineer, is with us this evening, and then Steve Voss, our planning director, are also here, and Bob Rogers from Bolton and Mank, who's our project manager for our consulting team. Just to let you know, we've been working on this study. We're at about almost the halfway point. We kicked it off middle of this past summer, and we've had quite a number of meetings with city staff as part of our technical advisory committee. We actually took city staff when we kicked off the study, actually did a charter bus tour through the whole corridor, which was kind of an eye-opening experience. So we had city staffs from all the way from Baxter to Nisswa, including the Crow Wing County staff that were with us on the bus all at the same time, which was fantastic. Have a lot of conversation, so it gives us a chance to really kick off the study and learn a lot about this corridor. So the corridor study, and I'm going to turn over to Bob here in a second, is from the southern border of Baxter all the way up to County Road 18 here in Nisswa. So it's quite a swath of territory that we're investigating here. And the hope would be that some of the findings, and we'll show you some of these things tonight. Hopefully we can incorporate some of them in. We have a pavement preservation project coming up in 2030. We might be able to incorporate some of it into that. Otherwise, some of these might be independent projects that we'll either do as a safety improvement, or some of the larger scale ones that we'll talk about with you guys might be something that we have to put on a little longer term, investment cycle, that we can either something you lead or we lead or the county gets involved, et cetera. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Bob. And again, I want to encourage you just to, please ask questions and don't be shy to reach out to us as we're going through this.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Again, Bob Rogers, I'm with Bolton and Mank. So just want to share, we've got about a dozen slides here to give you some background context of really the intent. And Tom kind of laid it out of, why we're doing this now and when. And even before we got started here, we were talking with, some of you all about, how maybe historically, if you could go back and do things a little different and things like that, right? And we didn't have a plan. Well, that's what we're trying to do, is really establish that plan so that the next 30, 40 years and things like that, when things change, we're kind of ready for it to move forward and give some advisement on how transportation improvements can be done. So again, just the overall study limits As you know, Tom had indicated, we've got a lot of project partners on this. Again, been working with your staff in Baxter, Crow Wing County Region 5 Development Commission. You know, not just, you know, the MnDOT folks you're seeing here today, but we've had, you know, other functional groups engaged. We had the statewide bicycle and pedestrian unit participate again in our bus tour and give recommendations along the entire corridor of where, you know, improvements could potentially be made. So getting a really, you know, comprehensive look at things. But the limits are from 18 here in Nisswa all the way down to the river crossing bridge at the south end of Baxter. And just knowing that there's various levels of study that have been done in the past. We know this study, you know, corridor has not been just, you know, first time looked at in this study, but there's been many things, and we're all, you know, taking into consideration all those past planning efforts as well. So we've tried to gather as much information on past reviews as well. So talked a little bit about the study timeline that's shown at the bottom, but really the goals of what this is all about is to really make a assessment and make, you know, some recommendations on, you know, not just cars and trucks and things like that, but also a multimodal corridor needs. We do know that, you know, this corridor, I think, John, you would indicate you've been driving around a golf cart all day, right? Well, we know golf carts actually cross over this roadway at times. And so we need to be, you know, aware of that. And how do we accommodate safe and efficient, you know, mobility of many different travel types and things like that with bikes, with walkers and other needs as well. We're looking at those future improvements, like Tom said, that we can incorporate into maybe an upcoming project, but then also, you know, future projects as well on a more spot and individual basis. So, you know, full recommendations for the entire corridor, and then how we incorporate that into the safety project. With our timeline there, we did kick this off last year, kind of in the summer and fall timeframe where we did our phase 1 work, and we'll talk a little bit about what was covered in that. That was a lot of kind of data collection, reviewing existing conditions, gathering input from the public. We had a pretty extensive phase 1 engagement process where we had a number of different activities that we did to try to gather that information from the public, from businesses, things like that. We're currently in kind of that second phase, as we'll call it. We're developing alternatives and evaluating them. We don't have a bunch of lines on this map here tonight, but we are in the process of putting those lines on maps. And actually just this morning, we had our North Segment TAC meeting with some of your staff, and, you know, got further ideas and opportunities for where we can make improvements. And we'll be drawing those up and evaluating, you know, what works, what doesn't work, what are the impacts, things like that. And then ultimately, as we move forward more into the summer and fall timeframe, we'll be creating more of that kind of, you know, the draft plan, or we'll call it corridor vision, which would then again ultimately be hopefully you know, kind of accepted and adopted by the project partners, and then used, you know, for that future advisement on as development occurs, where should transportation improvements be made, you know, just things to look out for and program as we move forward. So I talked a little bit about that community engagement. Like I said, kind of in the fall time frame, we had an online survey, got a tremendous amount of respondents to that, nearly 1,900 responders on our survey. We had an interactive map where people could kind of drop, you know, comments and notes on where they saw issues or opportunities. We had, mailed out several thousand postcards. We had over 5,500 hits on our website where people were viewing the information. And then we had 2 public meetings, one here at the City Hall, one in Baxter on that same day. We also had a community pop-up event at the Crow Wing County Fair. We are also at the Night to Unite event, and then just, you know, other things with social media, newsletters, things like that is how we've gotten the word out. So as you see on the right side, kind of just with the survey, you know, how people are using the corridor or why they're on the corridor. Probably no, you know, surprise on some of these. They're just driving, you know, they live near, they work near the area, they're seasonal residents, you know, just get a little bit of understanding of who our audience is or who our users are, is why we ask some of those questions. The next slide here really was getting at some of the questions we had in our survey, or what we ask at these public meetings is, you know, what are your concerns? What are your priorities and things like that? And as you can see, safety, you know, again, no surprise to you all. You live here, you experience it. You know, we are just confirming probably a lot of what you already know. But again, you know, intersection safety was a top one. You know, those next 3 green bars that are you know, kind of on the higher number of responses, kind of all interrelate, if you will. I mean, with you know, mobility, if we'll just call it that, with congestion, accessing, you know, businesses across the road, ability to cross the road and just traffic flow. So again, mobility and safety are the primary ones, but those other ones should not be, just kind of pushed to the side either. We do know that there needs to be additional, multimodal, ped bike types of connections, and safety improvements, lighting, something that is often, related to safety. And then we, even heard quite a bit about streetscaping, or just, maintaining the up north feel, if you will. We heard that several times. So, things that we'll take into consideration as we're looking at future improvements. So one of those primary priorities, or top priorities, was safety, and we're just focusing here on mostly the Nisswa area. But we do have, a crash analysis that was completed. As you see, a fair number of crashes are located throughout the corridor. I guess we don't have our total frequency on here, but there's many crashes that occur. Everything from just your minor, bumper, rear ends and stuff like that. Maybe they get reported, maybe they don't. To ones that we've, even have some pretty, significant and life-changing events that have happened in this northern segment as well. And those are the ones we really want to go after and try to make some improvements so that we can, change the conditions there. And, some of those being up along just south of downtown here. Had one, I think that involved a boat trailer, or was that the one at Nashway? I can't remember now. But yeah, we know that there's been a fair number of those more critical conditions as well. And so anywhere where we get a location where our critical crash index is greater than 1, which is that red dot there, that's one that we really, kind of go after and target. We do know that, I think that's right up near the Clark Lake intersection, and then also down by Nashway have been the two real primary ones. But 7713 is not one also that we shouldn't be thinking about, because there's a higher number of crashes that are occurring at that location too. So just want to point out, that is a main driver of the study, and the improvements we'll be looking at is safety. Mobility, on the other hand, is not something we're going to dismiss. The 4-lane roadway out there today, we know under a daily condition operates pretty well, right? But there's not a lot of opportunity, or there's not a lot of times when it's just a daily condition always. We know that there's peak events throughout the year in this part of Crow Wing County and in Nisswa and Baxter area, that we've got the summer peaks, the seasonal peaks, even in the winter, where there's much higher volumes and things like that. And so while we won't necessarily design everything to meet all of those peaks, we will definitely take into account what those peaks mean in terms of operations and safety as well. So, if you look at the volumes there, roughly 16,000 to 19,000 trips per day. Again, a 4-lane roadway can easily handle that. But we do see those volumes, especially some of those holiday weekends and things like that, where, we can almost double those volumes. We have started to look at some of our forecasting. We usually do studies like this. We don't just plan for today, but we plan for, 20 plus years out. And when we start looking at, the percent increases on the roadways, these numbers jump up into the mid-20s pretty quickly, 20,000s, I should say, pretty quickly, for the volumes and trips on the corridor, and then the side streets as well. And with the development pressure that's likely to occur, some of those side street volumes are going to continue to increase at a much higher percentage as well. So we're taking that into consideration. So we know there's some delays out there, especially at those signalized locations. Anytime you stop traffic and they got to sit and wait, and under those higher volume conditions and peak conditions, drivers get impatient, they take chances, they make poor choices, and that sometimes results in some of our safety problems, or we end up with trips on roadways where they necessarily shouldn't be because they're cutting through or things like that. So pedestrian conditions, I guess just one last item there, really there's in the downtown area, a pretty good system that you all have. There's the underpass, and then there's some of the improvements that have happened along Lower Roy Lake and things like that. But as it relates to, kind of parallel and crossing 371, there's not a lot throughout the entire community. So something we're looking at. I don't think MnDOT wants to put all those types of uses on the highway, but as they're supporting facilities that could service those. I think when we were on our bus tour, I was actually surprised how many people we saw on a bike or walking on the shoulder of the highway. And when, cars are zipping by at 60 plus miles an hour, probably not the best situation for them, or even, for all users and stuff like that. So looking for those opportunities to make further improvements so that there's efficient access to those facilities and crossing of the highway.
If I may ask on that
Yeah.
last slide, if you can go back.
Oh, you
one,
bet.
Are the numbers on the side roads, County Road 77, 13, 18, Nashway Road, are those also average daily traffic?
They're average
figures?
daily trips. Yeah. So
Got it.
again, you would see those on your weekends or even, your peak seasons would go up substantially.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Good question. 5 minutes. I got to keep moving. Access management. This is one that you may know a little bit about access management, what it is. We're really trying to control the location, spacing, and design of how people get on and off of the roadway or cross over the roadway. And there's different treatments that can be done to make improvements on that. We have a situation in our corridor, basically up and down the entire study corridor, where, access spacing guidelines are probably not being met in most cases. And so we're definitely looking at opportunities to, look at where we can make some improvements to, change what some of those access conditions are. The importance of access management, I guess at the bottom of this slide, which shows, preserving that mobility, reducing delays, minimizing crashes, all the things that were really, meant for the roadway and things like that. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're giving the ability for people to get on and off, visit the businesses, visit the downtown, get to their destinations and things like that, but in an efficient and safe manner. So,
I have one more too. So with respect to your time, with the 371 corridor project that was done just in between Nisswa and Baxter, right around the BIR area.
yep.
Do you guys have significant safety data to show how it's been improved with those changes? My business is right in front of there, and
Yeah.
we still see some relatively serious accidents that take place.
So I will say it's in progress of collecting the data and assessing it, but just today the MnDOT traffic engineer gave the indication that the results are showing much improved conditions. And I think just research, across the country on J-turns, we call those, are the type
Sure.
of treatment that we're done out in front of BIR, that yes, eliminating those left turns from the side street out onto the main line, where the high speeds are, especially at uncontrolled type of mainline conditions, substantially reduce crashes and really reduce the severity of those crashes and things like that. So it is something that we're, MnDOT is continuing to monitor that to see how those are operating and seeing if they are getting those safety benefits.
With an asterisk around the BIR Nationals weekend, I would probably presume, right?
Correct. And there's obviously some special traffic control that's going on during
That's
that
special.
time frame as well. So yeah, right.
Thank
So some of the things we are looking at just with intersection control types, there's opportunities. Hey, in some cases, we might do nothing. We might find that there's really not an issue here. We'll continue to monitor it. Why make an investment if we really don't have a problem today? Traffic signals are an opportunity to create a condition where, you can provide more access and things like that. I would say on this corridor, MnDOT's probably not looking to make it a highly signalized facility where the signals are today. We'll be looking to, maybe maintain, or if there's the opportunities in some cases to consolidate those or change the conditions if that's possible. I mean, we're talking about, 210. Everybody knows what's going on at 371 and 210, right? I mean, there's a future interchange being looked at in that location. So a signal could be removed from the corridor. Roundabouts are another opportunity. Even on a facility such as 371 are being used more and more in this state and across the country. Right in, right outs where you might, limit what kind of movements can occur on the roadway where you just allow people to right in, right out. Median U-turns or those J-turns like BIR, and then grade separation. So we'll be looking at kind of the whole toolbox of opportunities and what makes sense for the conditions that we have out there on the corridor. The various things, again, this is a little bit repeat of what we've already kind of talked about, but what we will be looking at on those corridor design elements is just, again, making sure that we're looking at that mobility condition, the safety, pedestrians, supporting local roads will be another big one. How can the city, the county, other jurisdictions with roadways in the area support some of these ability to make these improvements? Because you just can't go and close off access and expect that people are gonna be able to find them. There needs to be supporting roads that take on some of that traffic if it gets directed to another location. Access management, we're looking at freight. And again, we heard, from the public and things like that, again, with the natural resources in the area, it's something they want to definitely be protecting, and water quality and vegetation and things like that. We don't want to come in and just, make a massive freeway system through here and destroy what's attracting people to the area already today and hopefully in the future. Last couple of things just want to touch on. So again, we'll be talking about, access management and trying to, do our best to meet some of those guidelines. The little graphic up there in the right-hand corner, kind of just shows what we're talking about, right? Where you can have multiple developments that are serviced with a local road where there might just be a single access point out onto the highway rather than, 4 driveways or 4 local roadways, all trying to, get out to the highway. So you try to consolidate those, whether they're frontage roads, backage roads, we're finding to be actually more efficient. I think, again, we were talking with some of the city staff here, you get the opportunity then to, kind of lay your utilities and then have development on both sides. And so frontage roads are one option, but backage roads are yet another option where it can really support additional local development. Intersection controls are, we'll talk a lot more about when we get down here at the maps of some of the locations we've been looking at and talking about. And again, I've already mentioned some of those active transportation facilities for, moving pedestrians and bicycles and golf carts and everything else. And then lastly, that, we can't do a study with, no thought of the fiscal considerations as a part of this. We all know that funds are limited. We can't just go and elevate this road and not have any impacts on anybody and just try to put, a facility in here that has all interchanges and things like that. There's just not enough money to go around. So we need to do things that, can be implemented and fiscally responsible with the public tax dollar on that. So. Last one here, I think, just pedestrian facilities. Just want to put this graphic up for, what it looks like for someone to try to cross the roadway. And this is just south of town near the church property. That's a pretty long crossing location, and anybody with some mobility challenges trying to make this same type of crossing really struggles on a facility where we have, again, cars traveling at 60 plus miles per hour. There is kind of a refuge where you could cross halfway and stand there. I vacation up in this area just north of town here, and we try to cross over to get onto the trail, and my wife will not stop at the center median and wait for the next lane. We'll wait if it takes 5 minutes till we can make a single crossing across there because people just don't feel comfortable. So again, the underpass that you already have in town, awesome opportunity for people to cross the highway. We're not saying we're going to be proposing a whole bunch of bridges or tunnels and things like that, but we'll be looking at opportunities to make improvements for how people can also cross the roadway when they're not in their vehicle. So with that, I guess we can take a few questions if you would like.
This young lady here, I think, had a question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll maybe stop and do some of the stuff with the map. So yeah, go ahead.
One of the things when you mentioned, you talked about water quality. The last stretch that you guys did from the stoplight to north of the lake, the noise and the lights are unreal. Like in our house in the winter with the door shut, we can hear the traffic on so never could do that before that light and you redid the pavement. So what is your plan for noise and lights from the city, the big walking town in Nisswa, besides just water quality in some of these changes? Where does that come into natural resource?
Yeah, I can let the district talk a little bit about it. I can talk about it, how when project development happens, how we take some of those things into consideration, because I do a lot of that environmental review work and stuff like that. So yeah, say there was a project, and I worked on the project north of here, and there was an environmental impact statement done and everything for that. The lights and things like that, a lot of that is development. I will say that's kind of city plans and how they lay out, site developments and things like that. With noise, there typically is, if you're making a transportation improvement, especially if you're using state and federal dollars, there's like a noise analysis that has to be done. I won't say it's perfect. It does take into consideration increased traffic volumes, changes in grades, additional lanes, proximity to where homes and stuff like that are. What it doesn't do necessarily is be able to monitor like across the lake very well, how that's,
It's now, I mean, we have way more traffic, and you showed that in your stats, right?
Yeah.
It's changed over time too, so
Yeah.
does someone come back?
And a lot of the noise modeling does factor in increased volumes and things like that. But you're right. The increase in number of trips, the increase in speeds, the difference in vehicle types. Again, I don't know if there's more trucks using the roadway now that it's more efficient than maybe what it was before, but trucks have a a louder sound effect and things like that. So I guess the only thing I can say is, as a part of project development, when we come to the implementation stage, there's usually some level of an environmental review, and a noise analysis is typically done at that point to give residents an idea, here's what the change would potentially be.
When we advise communities like on developments, so on, it's adjacent to the highway, we usually, in writing, tell them we have to have some consideration of fencing or berming or some kind of noise abatement, because we know that once those homes or whatever you construct, built, if you don't have them abate, you will get complaints instantly.
Well, it's actually not the homes, it is where you took out all the trees between, from where those homes are north to the lake, and where you took it out where the DNR took them out for the boat ramp, which the boat ramp is not a problem, but nobody put the trees back. Right, and you can't put in 2-foot trees and expect that's gonna solve your problem. So it's not the homes, and it's actually not the city of Nisswa, because nothing's changed in the town. That's all the same, it's just all of those trees in those 2 big spots are gone. And that's where the noise is, and it is unreal that I can hear that in my house.
So whatever kind of buffers that we can
Yeah,
introduce to help.
Yeah.
It's gotta be
You know, help
better
update.
evaluated.
I don't know if you can eliminate it, but you gotta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of mitigate it.
But what I do love about when you did this time then is the surveys, right? I mean, you can see from the amount of feedback
Yeah.
we got. I mean, I think it is just a great job of getting that out where people could voice their opinion. So thank you for, I think that was a step up from last time. Appreciate that.
Any more questions, or else we can kind of break out and
Is it- Any questions for anybody or want? I think we're good. Let's look.